I asked for more money. They bumped it a little bit, but I had to turn it down. Wow.
Hey everybody, this is Marc Israel and welcome to Courtside, where we give you a fan's eye view of the NBA. And today I'm really pleased and just delighted to have my official first guest, the number one guest, Craig Ackerman, the voice of the Houston Rockets. And I mean this sincerely and truly, man. When I decided just to start this podcast, and I sat down and made a list of guests that I wanted to have on the podcast, you were the number one on the list. Well, it was alphabetical.
That too. I mean, I'm used to that. Yes, all good.
And there were some really cool names in the P's and C's.
I get it.
But no, seriously, in all seriousness, you know, and I'd like to talk about this a little bit. But when you're a fan of a team, and I'm a huge fan of the Rockets, as we both know. And when you're watching games, and it could be baseball, it could be basketball, it could be whatever sport that you're into, the broadcasters are like really a part of your lives, you know, and you really feel like you get to know them. And you really feel like you've developed a relationship down. So between you and Ryan and Vanessa, I felt that we were buddies long before I actually met you. And, you know, I've actually met you now a couple of times, and so I think we're legit buddies. But even before then, you know, because I'm spending a couple hours with you a couple times a week, and that's sort of what a guy like you does when you're broadcasting for a team. So the play-by-play announcer for the Houston Rockets, and I know you've been with the Rockets for a long time, but let's go way back. Let's start back in Cuyahoga Falls, right? You're the prior to Cuyahoga Falls, which, by the way, sounds like the most idyllic place in the world, is it?
Well, okay, so it's actually Cuyahoga.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's all good.
I've been practicing it all day.
No, it's all good. It is a suburb of Akron, Ohio. So in essence, I'm from the same place as a lot of. And I'm not considering myself NBA royalty, but LeBron, Hall of Famer Nate Thurman is from Akron. Wow. I believe Steph Curry was born in Akron. Either Larry Nance Sr. and or Larry Nance Jr. was born there. I think there are several others, but yeah, there's a little bit of a lineage. But I'll go back first and just say it is an honor to be here with you. Thank you so much. We appreciate your fandom greatly. So thank you for that. It's an honor to be here. I know that you will everybody remembers their first time, right? And so since I'm your first, yeah, hopefully this will be a memorable experience for you and will lead to a ton of success with the podcast. So it's an honor to be here. I'm really thrilled.
Awesome, man. The feeling's mutual. Did you dunk on any of those guys in high school?
No, actually, well, so I was born there. We lived there until I believe it was just before I turned 5. So just before I began kindergarten, ended up moving to Texas.
See, ChatGPT didn't tell you moved at 5.
Okay.
That was the problem.
Okay. So
that's what you get for relying on ChatGPT.
No, so moved here at 5. So basically from kindergarten on up, I've been here in the greater Houston area. I do have a couple of fond, well, maybe not so fond memories of my toddlerhood of being in Ohio. I think it was at my uncle's wedding, and one of my memories, I was running around and at the party afterwards, the reception, and cut my chin open, blood everywhere. They had to take me to the hospital. So that's one of my not so good family stories there.
So we start the first podcast with a bloody story. I like it.
But I have been to the greater Houston area since basically the start of kindergarten.
So you're really a Texan,
pretty much.
You legit can wear a cowboy.
I still have family in Ohio, but yes, pretty much. And you know what? My mom told me that when we had originally moved here, that I thought my impression of Texas was that literally everybody had horses and ranches and wore cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. And so I asked for a cowboy hat and cowboy boots, and honestly, that's the only cowboy hat and pair of cowboy boots I've ever had in my entire life.
Well,
I was basically 5 and 6 years old when we first moved here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I moved down here a couple of years ago from New York, and my friends still think that. I still think that we all walk around in cowboy hats and cowboy boots, and I look absolutely ridiculous in a cowboy hat, so I don't do that. But also, so you've been here since you were a little kid, and I want to talk about the Rockets and how you got, involved with the Rockets. But, correct me if I'm wrong, there was another sport that was your first love? You were a baseball player?
Baseball was my primary sport. I love to hoop. I played basketball as much as I possibly could. I did play for the school teams in middle school and then as a freshman, but primarily baseball was the sport that I played.
What position were you?
Well, I mean, when I was younger, I played a little bit of everything, but as I got older, the two primary positions that I focused on is I was a pitcher and catcher. So in high school, I guess I pitched and I caught, and so when I wasn't pitching, I was catching.
Not at the same time.
Not at the same time, obviously. If that was the case, then perhaps my career would have been a little bit different and different conversation. But I love both because I guess maybe I'm a bit of a control freak,
Right.
And maybe a tad bit, maybe a significant amount of OCD. And so I like to always being involved in pretty much every play and the thinking that goes into the strategy behind pitching and catching. And so those are always my two favorite positions, and did that through high school. And then when I got to college, I primarily just pitched until I ended up hurting my arm and stopped playing baseball. And then ultimately that kind of led to my career.
Where'd you play? Where'd you go to play baseball?
So I originally went to play at Tarleton State University, which is in Stephenville, Texas.
Okay.
And that was,
Wouldn't have gotten that one.
huh?
I wouldn't have gotten that.
That was, that was an interesting experience, but I'd met some friends there that are still friends, to this day.
Awesome.
I had an incredible, so in those days it was NAIA baseball, which basically there really were no practice rules like there is in the NCAA. And I think we started practicing probably the second day of after school started, and we went like all out like the entire fall. I had a great fall camp. I actually I won the closer's job, as coming in as a true freshman there. It was a very interesting team. The head coach was, a guy by the name of Jack Allen. He was a legend in the JUCO baseball coaching, circles in Texas. He had previously been the head coach at Ranger Junior College, which is up off of I-20 for a long time, won multiple, national championships there. He was about as old school could get. We're talking like he would dip, chew, and smoke simultaneously, right? And so
That's also cool.
And this was a very eclectic group of people. Like, we had some dudes who were probably in their mid-20s from Puerto Rico. And
College, right? Still in college.
somehow still in college. But it was
before all the NIL money.
all right. It was a very interesting group, but I had a great fall camp, won the closer's job.
So cool.
The season actually started off well, and then I struggled a couple of times and kind of lost my spot there as the closer. And quite honestly, I was a little bit homesick. And it was a small country town. At the time, Tyler Murray, who was the number one rodeoer in the world, was from Stephenville. It's a big dairy county. Like they produce a lot of, dairy products, milk, all that stuff. And so when I lost my my closing job, and I ultimately felt like, okay, well, I wanted to try to come back closer to Houston. And then that's honestly what kind of started me down this path of getting in with the Rockets and getting an internship and starting this profession. But it was also seeded in my brain that I wanted to be a broadcaster, because our games when I was a freshman at Tarleton State were on the radio, and I was fascinated by the fact that our games were being broadcasted. Cool. Like, just fascinated by it. And so
I have a listener games?
No, because obviously our team, but I was fascinated by it. And it really, when I was in high school, I know I'm kind of talking in circles here.
Please keep going.
I thought I wanted to play Major League Baseball, but beyond that, I wanted to either be a physician or a veterinarian.
Okay.
And so when I started school, I was actually a pre-med major.
Wow.
It's
not too late, by the way.
Trust me, it's too late for that. And I would prefer to, quite honestly, I prefer to do this over that.
Yeah.
But having our games on the radio really seeded that itch in my brain. I was always a huge sports guy, but I was fascinated by that.
So when you were growing up, were you a Houston sports fan? Astros.
The Rockets were always my basketball team. Always. The Rockets were my team.
Just so place me in, so when you're 10, 11 years old, who's on those teams? That's like.
So you look at that, they were mid 1980s. So like the Twin Towers, Hakeem.
Oh, wow.
Ralph. The teams, some of the biggest what if stories in NBA history. I mean, ultimately that group is broken up by some scandals with, with Lou Lloyd and so forth.
But again, Ralph and Hakeem, I mean, who just passed away, the Ralph and Hakeem. I mean, you couldn't get a better formula. That Twin Towers appeared to be like the perfect formula.
Right, and obviously the team that made the finals in the early 80s too. My dad was a Celtics fan, so that's one area I kind of veered off from him. So the Rockets were always my team. Football wise, Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, really?
My dad was a Steelers fan, so I did gravitate towards that.
And you were a Red Sox fan?
No.
I grew up a Yankees fan.
No.
We're down the conference. We got.
And this will circle back into another reason why I wanted to get into broadcasting. Baseball was my first love, sport-wise, growing up. Huge. My whole life was defined by baseball. The Chicago Cubs ended up being my team because as a kid, all their games were on all the time, and they primarily played during the day. Up until they finally got lights at Wrigley Field, which wasn't until off the top of my head 1989 or something like that. Every single game they played at home was during the day. They were always on WGN, so they were always broadcasted around the country.
Harry Carey,
and so I kind of fell in love with the lovable losers, and so the Cubs were always my baseball team. And again, ironically enough, having just watching them all the time as a kid, and the broadcast and the bigger than life personality that ultimately Harry Carey was, again, sort of helped develop a bit of
it's really cool
interest for me to get into the business.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I grew up in New York as a Yankees fan. So for me,
and my dad was a Yankees fan.
So the broadcast team when I was growing up were Frank Messer, who was a pretty standard sort of, play-by-play guy. Bill White, who was a player, and then the real character, Phil Rizzuto.
Right, of course.
And
legendary.
And if you're a Yankee fan, you just love Phil Rizzuto, right? It was sort of like your crazy, goofy, sort of like Harry Carey.
Right.
Right, you're crazy, goofy, a little bit out of control, but completely lovable uncle. And that's sort of what I was alluding to when we first started talking, right? Like, you listen to those guys 162 games a year or 130, 140 games a year. You know that, I mean, Rizzuto is legendary. He was scared of lightning. He complained about the traffic going over the George Washington Bridge. It was like family.
He was sort of a quintessential New Yorker.
Oh, quintessential New Yorker, a real character. And yeah, I love it. I loved he would like, talk for minutes. Like nobody knew what the heck he was talking about. He's never talking about the game. He would make home run calls on pop flies at shortstop. But you really, I love listening to him. And it's really true. I feel the same way when I listen to you live. I appreciate it. And you get that same vibe, which I want to talk about. But all right, so let's go backwards a little bit. Okay. So you realize you're not going to be Mariano Rivera. You didn't, you at some point you gave up baseball.
So I transferred, and ended up transferring. At the time, I had a girlfriend that was a year younger, and we ended up breaking up. But that was more part of the reason why I was a little bit homesick at the time too. But ended up transferring back and ended up playing at HBU, which is now HCU.
Okay.
So
you were still playing.
I was still playing. I was still hardcore playing. I was still hardcore playing in college and playing in travel leagues in the summer. I mean, I was probably playing 100 games a year between the actual school season and summer leagues and all that stuff. And while I was my first year at HBU, while I was a sophomore, there was a fellow student there by the name of Robbie Fisher, and he worked in the basketball office. And again, by this time, now when I realized at this point I didn't want to get into medicine in any kind.
Okay.
And so I knew I really wanted to try to see if I could find a way to do broadcasting for a career. I can't remember. They didn't have that major at the time there. I think I might have gotten into journalism or something. I can't remember specifically what the major was. But he worked in the basketball office and had been previously and currently, he was an intern. He worked as an intern in the Rockets basketball office. So, when Rudy T was the head coach. And so this basically was coming off of the Rockets' first championship, which obviously was, which was obviously, so I graduated high school in 92. So
good timing.
Good timing. Yeah. And so obviously the entire city, everything was just all Rockets back then. And so, Les Alexander had purchased the team right before that 93-94 season.
Okay.
And so, the team went on to win the championship. And as sports owners, I guess maybe all owners of businesses are want to do, at some point, they make changes. And typically those changes start on the senior management level and then kind of work their way down. So since he bought the team right before the season, there were no changes. But then coming out of that championship season, he did make some changes to the Rockets front office. Ultimately, they ended up, having a broadcast department that was led by Joel Blank. And Robbie told me about this. They were looking for an intern. Wow. And so he put me in touch with Joel. I made contact and I went down and ultimately interviewed for an internship at the Summit. And so that would be some point in the summer of 1994.
Oh, that is so cool. And by the way, to my daughters who are listening to this podcast who are now intern age, you see what happens when you get a good internship?
Yes, of course. I am a strong... I am a strong believer in internships.
Yeah,
I know there was been some controversy in the last couple of years. There was some sports reporter or somebody in sports media who tweeted out, like, you take any internship you can get, even if they're not paying you any money. And it became a controversy because people, you should be paid what you're owed. I understand that perspective, but I think ultimately getting experience and getting your foot in the door and the relationships that you build as a result are invaluable, money or not. That's my opinion.
100%. And by the way, there's, and I think part of that controversy, and it's happened all the time, there's just a couple of bad actors, right? A couple of bad actors who take advantage of kids and work them. There was an issue in Hollywood a few years ago, and they were like working these kids to death and giving them nothing. But as we're going to talk about, those relationships that you formed 30 years ago, there's a direct line from there to sitting right here. And look, we're not here to talk about my life journey, but I've had the same thing, right? I meet this guy who introduced me to that guy who gave me an opportunity to talk to that guy. And somebody said, one day you'll be with Craig Ackerman. So here.
Right. And so my best friend growing up in high school, his dad was in the sports media. He did basically traffic stuff. And he gave me, and this is something else that kind of stuck with me. One of the original pieces of advice that he gave me was in terms of the sports media world. And I'm assuming this probably might be the case in a lot of industries, but I know obviously that this is the way it is in media and sports media, is that's an extremely small world. And, don't piss anybody off was his first bit of advice to me. Don't piss anybody off because you never know if this person might know somebody who might ultimately help you down the road, and put in a good word for you, and vice versa. If you piss somebody off, they might say negative about you. You never know who you might be working with on down the line or working for. So no matter how much, his first bit of advice is no matter how much somebody pisses you off, it's great advice. Just let it go.
It's great advice. And it's great life advice. Just by the way, think about the NBA, right? There's 30 teams. Most of the broadcast teams on the TV side are 3, right? I mean, that's pretty typical, right?
You're talking about,
I'm talking about the TV broadcast teams. That's you, Ryan, Vanessa, right?
Right. There's basically a play-by-play analyst on the sideline.
Okay, so that's 30. That's 3 times 30. There's 90 jobs. There's 90 people, and you're probably going to bump into those people a lot, right? So
not just them, the people that they have to answer to and that they work for, and then the people who run the stations and the networks. And again, you get to know pretty much literally everybody. And it really is a very small world. I mean, just over the course of time, you meet and and you befriend the people who are working at a network level, right? And so, So I've always, every time I've spoken to anybody who wants to get into this business, I always tell them that story about my friend's dad telling me, don't piss anybody off. It's a small world and you may not know it now, but you will. And he was absolutely right.
It's great advice. And look, I'm sitting here with you having done it, and you'll tell me in a second, 20, 25, 30 years. But to me, it's obvious that it's obvious that your personality is you're natural. Did it come naturally to you? Did you so you took this internship, right? You took this internship. I'm guessing the personality you have today is the personality you probably had when you were 5 or 6 years old.
Very outgoing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that plays a role.
So there's some natural, right? You have some natural talent, but so now you get this internship when you're 19 or 20 or 21 years old. How does your natural talent morph into really getting onto a path where you get behind the microphone?
So another interesting story that I tell a lot of young people that want to have some advice on how about the business. So when I was an intern, part of my internship with the Rockets was I cut highlights for the radio broadcast. So that was back before anything was digital. So this was still reel to reel and cart machines. Who are like for the younger audience who may not even know what.
There's no idea what you're talking about.
But they look like 8-track cassette tapes, right? You know what I'm talking about.
8-track cassette tape.
Right.
That was like my bar mitzvah.
Okay, right. So at the time, at this point, it all kind of tight. I was at HBU playing baseball. I had a good first year. Ended up hurting my arm in the fall, my junior year, and ultimately decided, I had gotten my Rockets internship, ultimately decided to leave HBU. And then the radio studio host who was working for the Rockets at the time, Jim Kozimor, at that point, the following year, I had a chance to go play baseball in New Mexico State.
Oh, very cool.
In Las Cruces.
I don't know how I knew that.
I had already had I'd already started my Rockets internship. By now I had the bug of wanting to get into broadcasting, absolutely 100% installed in my brain. And then I found out, even though I was sort of transferring from non-NAI institutions, since it was a third transfer, I would have to sit out a year, and I wasn't about to go out to Las Cruces, New Mexico, and sit out a year. So then I made the decision that, Sam Houston State had a great RTV department.
Okay.
And then a lot of my buddy from high school and all of his extended friends they used to play football at Sam, and they were still going to school there. They weren't playing football anymore, but I used to go up there and hang with them occasionally. So I knew him and all of their extended friends. They had RTV. It was close enough in Huntsville where I could still do the Rockets internship. I thought it was a win-win. And my intention was to still try to walk on
to the baseball
and play my 5th year when I was at Sam. But at this point, I'm in the RTV department, and you're asking, so personality is part of it, but you have to learn the vernacular of the profession, how to quickly describe what you see to people. And when I first started doing games for the student stations up in Huntsville at Sam, I was awful. I was truly awful because it's
basketball. What were we doing?
I started off. I think I did football and I did basketball. I was terrible. I was truly terrible.
Wait, but before I was just told that. Did you know you were terrible at the time?
I knew I was terrible.
You're saying you're terrible?
No. I knew I was terrible. Okay. Because it was difficult for me to figure out, how can I quickly, accurately describe it. So Jim Kozimor, who was the studio host at the time, said, hey, this was specifically when it came to basketball, take a piece of paper, just draw out a rudimentary basketball court and start writing descriptors to things on this piece of paper. So, low block, left block, high post, wing, between the rings, circles. And again, this is primarily for a radio thing where you have to be overly descriptive. And when something comes to mind, write it down, listen to other broadcasters, write it down, and then study it. And that was one of the biggest pieces of advices I've ever received.
Great advice.
Incredible advice. I never, ever would have gotten to the point where I've gotten now if that was not given to me. And that's another piece of advice that I give to young people who want to get into this. And so I had this piece of paper, and I was fortunate when I was at Sam that the commercial station in town, which had previously aired men's basketball games, made a decision to not do it. Huh. And so the student station had always done just home games. And then the women's basketball coach at the time, and I feel bad for not remembering his name, actually approached me and said, hey, why don't you become the official person for our team? You can travel on our bus. We'll get you a hotel room. We'll pay for your meals. You do the games. So we ultimately made a deal with the student radio station. And then the men's basketball coach got on board because they had lost and then so ultimately the student station became the official broadcast home of both the men's and women's basketball teams at Sam Houston State. And so in those days too, they didn't travel on the same bus, but they played when it came to conference games. So say they were going to go play McNeese and Lake Charles. Right. they were all double headers. So the women would play first.
Oh, and then the men.
So I had an opportunity to double up the games in my experience. And so again, I had this piece of paper, I would study it, and then I was doing double games each time, especially in conference play. And those 2 years that I was up at Sam, and I eventually slowly, and I would listen back to literally everything that I did and picked up things and started watching games and broadcasts, not just for being a fan, but listening to the announcers, listening to how they phrase things, what vernacular they used, how they approach different situations, and becoming a student of the profession. And then this is something that you can't get better at without more experience and actually just doing it.
Wow. That's unbelievable. And that's amazing. And you were also in a program. Was the program helpful? The RTV program, or was really
there was not a sports radio play-by-play class at all.
So, but this was your
at all. No, this was more like all the classes were basically focused on. But it was a way to have an opportunity. They did have a student TV station,
right?
And I did sort of like their version of Sports Center or whatever it was. They did have a student radio station, so there was a chance to do, and the student TV station also did games, broadcasted home games, occasionally. But the classes themselves were basically just like script writing, video editing, things like that. There was no play-by-play course at all, and all that stuff. But they did give students a chance to do that stuff on the side, and so that's kind of why I ran with it. So my last 2 years of school up there. So
that is so cool. It's an amazing experience. It's funny because when you talk to any kind of performer, you're a performer, right? A lot of people will tell you that as they were learning their craft, there was in the back of their head, there was somebody that they admired or somebody that they grew up listening to, and that, perhaps in the beginning they were mimicking and imitating that guy and that person as time went on, they became. Did you have that?
Yes, absolutely, of course.
So who was your hero growing up? Who in your head were you trying to sound like?
Well, obviously, I already mentioned Harry Carey. His personality was something that obviously, there are very few announcers who are, frankly, bigger than the teams that they work for. It does. You used to mention Phil Rizzuto, Harry Carey, Big Scully would be one.
I don't know.
There are the former voice of the Cavs. He has since passed away, but Joe Tate was the Cavs were not very good when he was there. But I think I would probably put him on that level. But there are very few people who can achieve sort of that status where they ultimately are bigger than the franchise and the players and the coaches. That, like Harry Carey, when he was calling Cubs games, he was the single most important figure associated with the organization. We're talking there, of all the players, all the guys who've gone through there, like when he was there, he was like the biggest thing.
25, 30 years later after he died, he's still a huge part of
course,
Cubs and the take me out to the ball game.
Right. So his personality, but locally growing up a Rockets fan, Gene Peterson on the radio side, Bill Worrell on the TV side. And then when I got my internship with the Rockets, one of my jobs were this was on the radio side, were to listen to, every other team's broadcast, pull highlights so they could use it. We would cut highlights for the Rockets and the other teams to use in the pre, half, and post game shows.
Okay.
And so I had a chance to listen to every team in the league, every radio guy in the league. So I had a chance to listen to how each person sounded, and take what I liked, what I didn't like ultimately from each of them. And the 2 people on the radio side in those days that really stood out to me were Kevin Harlan's the big name. He was doing radio for the Minnesota Timberwolves at the time.
Wow.
And obviously the Wolves were just awful.
Horrible.
They were truly terrible. And they had, for the most part, in their franchise history, they've been awful. But they were truly terrible when they were an expansion team and they first came in the league and he was doing their games. This was before Kevin Harlan became Kevin Harlan. And then another Kevin Calabro, who was doing the Sonics, Seattle Supersonics. And the Sonics were doing a simulcast of radio and TV, but his call was more tailored towards the radio side. Kevin is now doing the Portland Trailblazers.
Oh, that's cool.
When the Sonics left to move to Oklahoma City, he didn't want to move. That's his home base up there. And so he stayed in the area. I think he worked for the Pac-12 network, did some stuff for ESPN. And then ultimately got the Blazers job. And so he's been in Portland now for, I don't know, 5-8 years. I can't remember the time. But
did you consciously know that you were sort of, well, they were the guys that you admired. Do you think that you were, constantly mimicking those guys? I mean, Kevin Harlan, I don't know the other guy. I don't know the guy, the Trailblazers, but Kevin Harlan's got a very unique style, right?
Well, the common theme amongst Gene Peterson, Kevin Harlan, Kevin Calabro, guys like Harry Carey, Bill Worrell, is that there's tons of energy.
Oh, God, Kevin Harlan, unbelievable.
An enormous amount of energy. That's the one thing that I picked up on more than anything. That's the one style after listening to everybody in the league, because there were some guys out there that would literally put me to sleep. Now, remember, this is radio. It's not TV. So in radio especially, it's like, your people aren't tuning in to a full-on radio broadcast unless you're traveling somewhere, right? And so in order to grab somebody's attention, like, to me, was like energy. And like, remember, the Bulls were awful, and Harlan was into it all the time. Kevin Calabro, if you look up his stuff out, he's got highlights on all over YouTube.
Kevin Harlan always is like yelling. It's like, everything's
like energy. Energy to me was the biggest thing, the biggest drawer to me. And that's another sort of bullet point that when I talk to people, to me, energy is the most important thing that you can bring. If you don't sound like you're enjoying what you're doing and having fun and it being a big deal, then people are going to pick up on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and particularly on radio, right? Because, at least with TV.
And I like coffee too, so I drink a lot of coffee. So I'm very caffeinated.
I don't think you have a problem bringing the energy. Is it, all right, so you started doing radio, but you weren't doing TV in those days, I guess, right?
No.
You were doing radio. So you started by doing the radio, so now you're doing the men's and the women's, SAM, which is amazing. What an amazing experience.
Right. And then my last year at SAM, the conference tournament, men's and women's conference tournament was in the same place. I cannot remember, but I think it might have been in, Shreveport, but I might be wrong on that. Both teams got eliminated, and then the last game I did there was the men's team got eliminated. There was no postseason play for them, and I honestly thought as soon as that game was over, that I would never, ever, ever do this again.
And was that heartbreaking?
It was heartbreaking. Yeah. It was as heartbreaking to me as when I made the decision to stop playing baseball. Right. That really hurt. Now, in hindsight, it was the best decision I ever made. I was never going to play professionally. Right. I was pretty good, but I was not that good, and so I was never going to play professionally on any level. And so as heartbreaking the decision as that was, it was the best for me. But it was just heartbreaking because I never, ever, ever thought I would ever do this again.
So in other words, so it ended and you didn't think you could make a career out of it, or because you didn't know what the path was to a career? You got this opportunity, sort of, let's call it a freebie, right? To do the men's and women's games. Incredible run. Now it's over. You thought you were going to do this again because you didn't know how to make a living at it?
I didn't think anybody would trust me to hire me to pay me to do it. And so, remember, I'm still an intern for the Rockets. Now, I didn't get hired full time in the Rockets broadcast department until, I was actually an intern for 3 years. So the second of the back, so 94, 95 was my first. I graduated college in 97. Okay. I didn't get hired full time in the Rockets front office to work until, I believe it was officially October the 1st of 97. And so I was still an intern. So in the summers I would go and I would work in the office when I came back home. Obviously I graduated. And there was another intern, who worked in a different department with the Rockets, and she had previously interned, in the Rice athletic department. Okay. And the whole reason this came up, I had no idea, is that for some reason she had like a Rice football media guy on her desk. And I was like, hey, can I take a look at it? And so I'm flipping through this thing and I noticed that, Tom Franklin, who at the time was the sports director at KTRH Radio, which is the long time flagship station of the Houston Rockets on the radio side, Tom Franklin also used to do the Oilers, was the play-by-play guy for the Oilers for a long time, was working Rice football games. Wow. And then she worked in the Rice athletic department. I was like, oh, okay. So now here's my mind working, these relationships. And so I knew Tom because I would run into him I would work at the state studio for Rockets games. And then she put me in touch. She gave me the name of the marketing director at Rice. And so I ended up reaching out to Tom and he followed up on that. And so, I ended up reaching out to, his name was Mike Bidet. He's actually now the head of the president of the U of H Alumni Association. It's pretty cool. And at the time, my girlfriend, now wife, was pregnant. It was not the easiest of pregnancies. We went and he was like, so I called Mike. And he's like, why don't you come in? I said, I'm interested in doing anything that I possibly can do for Rice Athletics. Wow. Anything. Wow. And he said, why don't you come on in? And so we went to her OBGYN appointment. And so this is like August, and it's like 1,000 degrees outside. And so she's with me, and since the doctor was in the medical center, so we pull up to Rice Stadium because their offices, the athletic offices, his office was in the football stadium. And I went up there to talk with Mike and left Shannon in there for she was in the car literally for like 3.5, 4 hours. Like, I didn't expect it to take this long.
Yeah, just a good thing the baby didn't come in.
Correct. And so
a much different conversation.
Right. And so I basically interviewed there, and Mike kind of hired me on the spot. I said I agreed to work for free to do sidelines, right? And that's how I kind of started with, oh, okay, well maybe someone can trust me and I can get hired for this. And then it went from there to women's basketball at Rice. And then, hey, once you also want to do men's. So I did men's and women's basketball at Rice. For home games, I worked with John Granato, back at Rice back in those times. So I did football sidelines. Matt Musil, who was the former sports director at Channel 11, and Tom Franklin were the two guys, play-by-play analysts on the football side. So I worked with them.
This was radio?
This was radio. This was radio. And then I did radio at Rice. I worked with John Granato for home games. And then Mike was actually the analyst on road games for men's basketball. So there you go.
That's crazy. All right. Well, let's keep going. So now you're at Rice.
Now I'm at Rice.
And then now you're, we still got to get to where we are today. So,
right.
Okay. So how do you, and how?
I'm a huge networker, as you
see that. And it's unbelievable.
As you can tell, I'm not done with the networking yet. So,
but by the way, it's funny. So I built a career, obviously, in a completely different, arena, but it's all the same. It's all the same. It's all the relationships you build until the people that you don't piss off.
And never forget that.
It's all the opportunities you take that may seem completely absurd from the outside, and why am I doing this, and does it really make sense? And if you just start putting all those dots together, like I said, you hang out with Craig Ackerman one day. But yeah.
So around the late 90s, the Rockets, Les Alexander bought an arena football team. They were originally the Texas Terror.
Oh my God. Wow.
And then they changed their name after a year or two because it wasn't well received to the Houston Thunder Bears. But
where did they play?
The Summit.
The Summit.
They played at the Summit. Oh, I'm going to tell you something.
Arena football.
I can't remember how long Arena Football League was here.
Church, yeah.
The Arena Football League was a trip.
I remember.
The guys who played in that league, they were missing a couple of marbles. It's like literally all of them.
Before they slammed into the walls.
Correct. The first head of PR for the Texas Terror, his name was Chris Burkhalter. So again, I'm networking. He was there for a couple of years, left, and then he went out to Grand Canyon University in Phoenix, was the head SID there. And then came back and became the full-time head SID at the University of Houston. So this is where I'm networking.
Moving up.
So I remember at the time, I believe Matt Thomas did some U of H games, but I believe at the time Russ Small, who used to be the sports director at Channel 2, was doing. Who's he doing the Oilers? Anyhow, we were on a football road trip, and I had heard that that U of H was going to be in the market looking for a new full-time person.
Radio. Again,
radio. It's all radio. It's all radio. And so I knew Chris, and he was now working at U of H. So I said, cool. I called up Chris and I said, hey man, this is what I've been doing. I would love to be considered. Let me know. I sent him some tape. Ultimately, went in and interviewed with him and the athletic director, Chet Gladchuk, at the time. I know he went to Navy. I don't know if he's still AD in Navy now, but, and ended up getting the primary, voice of the Cougars football job, and then men's basketball. And so, I mean, obviously that's a sort of a progression where you you want to become the primary person.
Right.
And then, so I was at Rice for 3 years, and then I moved over to U of H.
And you were still doing arena football, or that?
I'm insane. I started doing some broadcasting for arena football, mainly just studio work, like pre, half, and post. And then eventually I started doing some Matt Thomas was doing the radio, and then he moved over to do some TV. And then I moved over to do some radio, and then Houston Comets came in 1997. And so kind of started doing some studio work there. And so, here we are.
Did you still think you sucked at this point? Or at this point, you were comfortable?
No, at this point, I know I didn't suck.
Right.
But this is a tough business. Like it's very hard to make, legitimate money in this business unless you are working in the 4 major sports.
Right.
And even
professional,
on the professional level, even if you're working the biggest of the big college programs, so say you're the voice of the University of Texas for football, men's basketball, baseball, often that job entails having to have either a radio job, like a sports show of some kind, or something else to parlay with it. The money's a lot better in those massive, gigantic programs like that, like LSU, like, Michigan, things like that. At the major universities, obviously the profile, the money's a lot better there. But ultimately, the primary way to do play-by-play and make a living is you've got to get a good living is you've got to get to the professional level, and it's virtually impossible to get to the professional level. So it's kind of like a catch-22 because there's so many good, talented people in this business in a variety of sports who either don't have the ability to network or don't know the right people, and don't ever give an opportunity. And then also when people get these jobs, they just
don't let them go.
They don't let them go. Jim Foley, the former longtime radio guy with Gene Peterson, for part of the voice for 30 years for the Rockets on the radio side, told me that when people get these jobs, they die in office. And he's right. They get these jobs and guys will hold them until they're, Al McCoy, who recently passed away a couple of years ago, was the longtime voice of the Phoenix Suns on the radio side. He worked calling Suns games until he was 89, 90.
Unbelievable. John Sterling in New York just retired. He was your Yankees 85, 86, 87. At some point, he had like 3,000 games in a row or something. And you know where I sit at the Rockets games, and I meet a lot of the broadcasters because where
it's an old man's profession.
Yeah, I mean a lot of these guys, and I'm like, well, how long have you been? It's on 30 years. I've been doing 35 years or something like that.
And maybe I'm now an old man now. I mean, I've just turned 51,
right.
And this will be my 31st season.
It's amazing
with the Rockets. And as a 51-year-old, I still believe I'm in the bottom third youngest of NBA broadcasters.
That's unbelievable.
Radio and TV.
The guy, super nice guy, the Pelicans guy, Joe.
My God.
I don't know why. Super nice guy.
Well, he's gonna get really upset that I'm Joel Myers. Joel Myers, like crazy deep voice. He for a while when the Texans first came into the league as expansion team, he did their preseason games.
By the way, I just as a little aside. I got NBA League Pass when I'm on the road. I will randomly watch any random game. I love Antonio Daniels.
Great dude.
Antonio Daniels.
Great guy.
Talk about energy.
Yes.
I'm giving a shout out for Antonio Daniels.
Great guy. Great guy.
Seemed like a great guy, man. He's a nice guy. But talk about energy.
Yes.
You feel he like bursting out of his suit. You feel like he's going to run in the middle of the court. And anyway, it's a lot of fun. One of the cool things about the League Pass, right, is you're actually watching the local feed of all the teams. So I get to see a lot of I see on Space City Network, but when I'm on the road and watching other teams, you see their broadcasters. But okay, so all right, now I think we've got you up to doing college, and like you said, so there's 4 major sports. I don't know how many teams in each sport, 30. So there's maybe 600, 700, 800 of these jobs in the country. I'm doing
it's more statistically.
Like, how do you get there?
It's more difficult to get one of these jobs than it actually is to play in the league.
Right, because these guys have. I mean, the NBA.
There are fewer of these jobs available than there are actual slots for professional athletes, and it's virtually impossible to become a professional athlete. Like I had teammates that ultimately ended up playing in Major League Baseball. Didn't have super long careers, but cup of coffee here, played a couple of years here and there. Like a guy I played with in high school and little league, played at LSU and played for the Royals. Was the when he first went, I think in mid '90s, he was the AL Rookie of the Year with the Kansas City Royals. And within like 3 or 4 years, and his dad had pitched like 10 plus years in the big leagues with the Rays. Within 3 or 4 years, he was out of Major League Baseball. Like, and he was insanely good.
Right.
And I caught on my summer league team Scott Williamson, who was an all-star closer for the Reds.
Yeah. For a long
until he blew his elbow out.
Yeah.
And he, he had his career trajectory was straight on up. And so he was a pitcher on our summer league team. So I caught him. And he got hurt and got out. So knowing how good some of these guys were, and I was not even close to as good as they were, to base where they were versus where, Jose Altuve and the kind of career, the level of athletic prowess that professional athletes have.
Yeah.
They're there because there is something that is special about them that most people don't have. Now, they separate themselves by the work that they put in, but nobody can work enough to achieve that level of athletic.
Right. They have a little something extra.
There's something there. Like there's something, professional athletes are born with something that normal people do not have. Now, again, ultimately, the work that they put in,
Of course,
separates themselves from other people at that level, but they're just different.
I heard Steve Kerr say something. He was talking about, not Steve Kerr, JJ Redick, when the Lakers came and played the Rockets, talking about Amen Thompson. He said all NBA players are like in this 1%. He said Amen Thompson's in the 1% to 3%.
There's just something different.
That was JJ.
That's something he and his brother were born with.
Right.
Like, that level of athleticism is something that they were born with. Then the work they put in ultimately fine tunes things. But pro athletes they're just different.
Yeah. Yet it's harder for you to get a job.
Statistically speaking, yes.
I'm not trying to compare you and Amen at this point.
Right.
But seriously, statistically, it's harder. So, so I guess my first question.
And I never lose sight of that fact either, how fortunate I am because of that fact.
I think that, yes, there's a lot of luck in life, but there's also a lot of hard work and there's some talent. I mean, I think I'm going to say the same thing about you that you said about these athletes, right? You have natural energy, you have natural skills, you have natural talent. You worked your ass off, right? You networked, got a couple lucky breaks. That's sort of life, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of life, right? And that's why you're there. So, you were talking about that other than the big four sports, hard to make a living. Hard to support a family. Now you got kids or you have babies on the way. So I want to do the NFL or I want to do Major League Baseball. Did you care? Or did you want to get into the NBA? Like, what were you trying to do?
At that point, I'd been working for the Rockets and basketball became sort of I did football. I did stuff at Rice. I did stuff at U of H, Rita Football League. I love football. I really do. But my main primary focus was, then my goal was, okay, I gotta try to become an NBA broad. Like that was my singular, focus. And when I was working, I originally worked for the Rockets. I worked in the office and I produced our radio games. So that I went from the intern to the person who was producing the games. And then to the Rockets' credit, they allowed me, when I had those games to do at Rice and U of H, they allowed me to take I took vacation days to travel and do all this. So because they knew that's what I wanted to do, and they supported me in that. So I was and without that, obviously that probably never would have happened either, because again, I'm talking, my son was born in November 1997.
Son I know? No.
No, the other one, yeah, he was the one, he's a camera guy at the Rockets games. Also the thrash metal. Also the thrash metal.
I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I can talk about it, but your son, he's the cameraman.
Yep, he got it.
By the way, I think that's a much more dangerous job than him being in a thrash metal band.
He did get run over this past season by Steven Adams and he got concussed.
He told me. It's insane. He's the guy, just if you don't know, he's the guy who sits on those little cushion things under the basket with the camera and waits for like some 285-pound guy to knock him over.
Right. So, but it's surreal that he's there. But yeah, so he does that. He does the Astros and he does all, and then again, he's got his thrash metal band. So, but anyhow,
but back to you wanting to get into here. Go ahead. Yeah, I don't know how we start talking about your son, but go ahead.
Okay, so I'm trying to remember where we left off now.
Oh, you said now you really were focused.
Oh, correct. So like I said, so the Comets came in, and so I had a chance to do pre-alpha posts with the Comets, and then over time had a chance to start doing games with the Comets, and that was so much fun back then. The atmosphere of those games at the Summit and Contact Center when they won the first 4 titles was so amazing. Oh my God, it was so much fun. And that team was an interesting group, to be around and travel with Cynthia Cooper and Cheryl Swoops and Tina Thompson and Van Chancellor and all of their extremely different personalities. And obviously they made work on the basketball floor. There was always well documented, famously a lot of tension amongst that group, but it was a really neat group to be around. And so I started doing more games there. And then ultimately the Rockets in 2003 made some broadcast changes. And the Rockets radio studio job came open full time. And so they moved me into that, and I left the University of Houston. I stopped. So the last thing I did at U of H was the Hawaii Bowl in 2002. If people remember, so that was Art Browse as the head coach. I think, was it Kevin Cobb as the quarterback? Anyhow, went to like 3, 4, 5 overtimes.
Wow.
He was on Christmas. And then there was a brawl at the end of the game to end all brawls.
Oh my God.
Like, and so I remember, I flew in like from Houston the day before,
Right.
to Honolulu, did the game. I'm already exhausted. And then I was like on a red eye after the game out because I had to get back here.
You stuck around for the brawl, right?
I stuck around for the brawl. Like, I believe that stadium allowed, like, a lot of times in college only stadiums, they don't allow alcohol sales. And that might be a lot different now,
Right.
but they allowed alcohol sales. And I'm telling you, like both teams, it was full on, all out brawl. It was, the game was crazy good. Like, it went like 5 overtimes. And this was when Hawaii had the run. I think, who was their quarterback? It was Timmy something. I can't remember, but they were really good. U of H, that was when Art Briles had taken over, and their program was terrible.
Right.
And, I think it was Kevin Cobb was the first one. He had basically 2 NFL quarterbacks that played for him. One of them was from Stephenville from Hawkwood Turtle, because he used to be, Art Briles was the high school coach at Stephenville High School before I think he moved on to where he moved on to Texas Tech, where he became the offensive coordinator. And now, anyhow, so obviously there's been some history post Art's days when he moved on to Baylor. So I just doing the Comets, and then that studio job came over, and that's when I kind of became full-time broadcast guy for the Rockets and stopped working in the office. And that was in 2003. And so I was working with Gene and Jim. Again, that was surreal. Again, remember, I grew up listening to these guys, and now I'm working with them. And then a couple of years into that, there were a few occasions where Gene missed a game or two, and Jim would miss a game or two, and I had an opportunity to fill in for them.
So great.
And then there were...
I apologize. I keep some still saying. All still on the radio side.
All still on the radio side. And there were a couple of games that Gene missed. And so I filled in for him. So here, I'm having a chance. My goal when I came out of school was, by the time I was basically 27, I wanted to be working at least D1 level of college football. By the time I was 35, I wanted to be working professional sports. Those were my personal sort of goals. So around this time, I guess I'm probably in my early 30s now, and I'm calling NBA games, albeit just a couple. But they ended up being really good games. I got really good tape out of it. And in my contract with the Rockets, they knew that I wanted to be a play-by-play guy. My contract, it allowed me to pursue other NBA jobs. And so I got this tape. And to me, again, for anybody, young people, the tape is the work. The tape is everything. And the Minnesota Timberwolves radio job came open.
What do you get? Give me a year.
My gosh,
4 or 5?
It's probably earlier than that. I mean, maybe 2001 or somewhere around there.
All right, so they're just
So,
their TV guy is great too. Michael,
Grady.
yeah, great.
And I probably only do about 20 of their games because he's working for every network.
Yeah, I see that.
So
The T-Wolves job.
So I went and interviewed, and they offered me the job.
Whoa.
And I was making more money doing Houston Comets games and pre-half and post games for the Rockets.
And
now remember, I had a young family at the time too, so there's something I had to consider. And I asked for more money. They bumped it a little bit, but I had to turn it down.
Wow.
And again, so you're talking about someone, his job we just talked about, these jobs never come open. One came open and I had to turn it down.
Wow, that's how hard.
It was brutally difficult.
I mean, sitting here today, we know it was a right decision, but how hard was that to turn?
It was incredibly hard. So they ultimately ended up hiring the guy who was doing their WNBA games, Brian Seaman. Brian, so in and amongst this, so the following summer, the LA Clippers radio job came open. Sent my stuff in, was a finalist for the job, went down and interviewed for the Clippers job. I also, maybe a year or two before, was a finalist for the Sonics. Ended up, when they were still in Seattle, right before they moved to Oklahoma City, they split their simulcast. They were looking for a radio full time. I was involved as a finalist for that job. I didn't get that one. I actually went in and interviewed the Clippers, and ironically enough, Brian Seaman, who had taken the Minnesota job, got hired as the Clippers guy. And so he moves to LA after one season. So the Wolves called me back and said, "Hey, it's open again. Do you want it?" And I said, "Well, what's the money situation?" And I was like, I can't do it. I mean, I really want to, but I can't. And again, it was hard. That's hard. And then again, ultimately, Jim Foley had some health problems towards the end of his Rockets tenure here. And so I basically started working full time for basically that entire last season, half of that last season, before Gene retired as well. And then when they ended up retiring in 2003, I got the job I ultimately was looking for with my team, the Rockets, and I got hired as the full-time play-by-play guy for the Rockets on radio in 2003.
That's unbelievable. By the way, you just said it, right? How cool is that to get the job with your team? I mean, not that it wouldn't have been amazing to be the Clippers play-by-play guy or the
It's
Wolves,
different.
Something like that. This is your team.
I was on Richmond and Westheimer partying with everybody else, and they won those first two championships. Yes,
that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now you're broadcasting,
right?
And now hopefully coming up, you're going to be broadcasting a championship again. And all right, so now you're on radio. Then how the heck do you get on TV?
So I'm doing radio, and I don't know for how long it was, 8 years or something. And
do the radio guys when the team travels? I want to talk to you about the travel a little bit, because I think people are just interested in what you guys do, right? What you guys, I mean, we know that you look for mechanical bulls, but other than that, what do you do when you're on the road? So do the radio guys travel with the TV guys? Everybody travels together?
Yeah. I'll travel with the team.
Okay.
And so at some point, Bill Worrell was winding down his career, and he didn't want to travel anymore.
All right.
And so, Tad Brown, who was the CEO at the time and now runs Harris Sports Properties, which owns the Commanders in DC, the Sixers, and the New Jersey Devils. He now runs all of that. But he was our CEO at the time. He was a big proponent of mine.
That's great.
And so I ended up getting the TV job for road games because Bill wasn't traveling anymore. So I did radio. So I started splitting at radio at home and TV on the road, and did that for 5 seasons. And then Bill retired, and then I got the TV job full time. So here I am.
How different is radio and TV from what you do as a play-by-play guy?
So don't tell anybody, but radio, the real art of play-by-play is on the radio.
Really?
Right. And real art.
Between us and
between us.
Hope on the thousands. Okay.
Don't tell anybody. The real art of it is on the radio side. And, because you have to paint the picture. If you take a long-time TV person and try to dump them into call a game on the radio, they're going to be terrible. You can take someone who's been a long-time radio person and put them on television, and they'll figure it out, because they're really, again, the art of play-by-play is on the radio side. Right. All right. And, you'll see quite a few people.
I would say the vast majority of people work on TV have a background prior to radio. Like Mike Breen used to be the radio voice of the Knicks before he started working TV games for the Knicks and then ESPN and all that other stuff. Kevin Harlan was a radio guy. Kevin Calabro was a radio guy. Mark Followill, who does the Dallas Mavericks TV, was their radio guy originally. A lot of people started on the radio side because you learn the true art of play-by-play on the radio side because you have to be everything for the listener. Right? Everything.
Right.
So you learn the cadence, you learn the word, the vernacular, you learn it all. TV is you're more or less, you're sort of a quarterback, right? And you have to pull back. And that was kind of especially when I'm moving back and forth, there was adjustment for me, especially that first year. I think the first 2 months, and I said this when I first took over for Gene and Jim on the radio side, it was very weird for me listening to myself calling games when I thought it should have been theirs. It took me 2 months to kind of get comfortable in my own skin. It took me 2 months when I first started doing TV to kind of get comfortable in my skin. Knowing that Bill was still working and people were also trying to compare me with Bill, I'm trying to live up to that standard. But so you just have to pull back a little bit, and it's more sort of captioning things of,
do you do radio now? Do you do any radio?
No, I do not. I mean, we missed a game last year in Sacramento. I was bored and I jumped on the Matt Thomas and I did radio in Sacramento.
And is it, and you fall right back into it?
I didn't call the game. I was his analyst, but yeah, but if I had to, yes, I could drop right.
And when you're on the TV side, I mean, I guess you're not thinking about it anymore because you've been doing it for so long. But when you were doing both, or when you're transitioning from one to the other, did you consciously have to pull back on TV? Is there a different cadence, or is there
the one thing
shut up more? I mean,
you have to shut up more. But the one thing I had to really pull back on was the volume of my voice.
Really?
So my dad had hearing aids. He had a hearing issue that was related to something at birth. And so my entire life, and my sister as well, we've always had to speak up. And my parents have passed away, but always had to speak up for my dad to hear us. And so I have a very loud, very projecting voice. And so does my sister because of it. Like there's a lot of times I'm sitting at the table at the house and thinking I'm talking normally and everybody thinks I'm screaming. I stop screaming. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm not talking, right? And so, but that's part of it. And so I had to turn down the loudness of my voice on TV because on radio, you use your voice to sort of give the influx in the tone of what you're describing. That's one thing I had to really I could say the same things, but I had to back off. But I was always also a big fan of, and you grew up, you're from the New York area, Doc Emmerich.
Oh yeah.
Okay. He did the NHL and NBC forever. He was the TV voice of the New Jersey Devils forever. To this day, I've always considered that, and even I've considered him pound for pound the best play-by-play voice of all time.
Wow. Amazing.
His vocabulary, I think somebody charted him. I don't think he ever repeated words.
It's incredible.
Like the way he described things. Like he had the most incredible broadcast vocabulary of all time. His energy level was incredible. And one thing when I'm watching, and I like hockey, watching games on TV with him was that, most of the time the standard on TV is, you're going to kind of back off or whatever. Well, Doc Emmerich is like, he's in it and he's describing everything. And I'm like, I loved it. To me, again, and so to me, another thing I kind of had to fight with some of the executives over at the network when I first got the TV job at first was, you're talking too much, you're doing this. But to me, my energy is my greatest strength. And so the more I can add, but I just need to do it in a lower volume because it just doesn't sound as good on TV when everyone can see it. So even though I am still exceptionally loud, I'm not as loud on TV as I ever was.
Yeah, I don't know. I listen to you. I don't notice that you're so loud, but I mean, your energy comes through. I mean, your energy is huge.
I had fun. I'm getting paid to watch basketball.
It's pretty cool, right?
I don't work. I don't work for a living. Don't tell anybody that. I don't work for a living.
It's again just for you and me and whoever's watching this. And how do you develop so how long have you and Ryan? So I'm new to Houston, right? I'm here a couple of years.
Okay,
I've come into the game. So how long have you and Ryan been part?
So I originally worked with Matt Bullard and worked.
Matt Bullard.
Actually, Matt Bullard worked with Bill Worrell longer than Calvin Murphy worked with Bill Worrell on the game side. Obviously, Calvin's been part of the broadcast in a variety of ways for a very long time. But
wait, by the way, let's just. How cool is Calvin Murphy?
He's so cool. And he's been so supportive and so good to me. Love that man. He is on the Mount Rushmore of Houston icons, I think, Land, for sure. Like,
Is there? So I've met him a few times. Nicest guy in the world. Sharpest dresser and nicest guy in the world.
Yeah, and obviously our little broadcast position at Toyota Center, like, he is the focal point of the people who are there. They don't want to see me. They don't want to see Ryan. They don't want to see, everybody wants to see and talk to Calvin. So he's,
and let me give you something, as a fan, because I think, I come to the games early, I hang out, and I see everybody who comes up and approaches him, he gives them a big hug and a big smile, and he takes photos with everybody. I've never seen him turn anybody away, and he just has a smile that lights up.
larger than life personality. Yeah, for sure.
Great guy. I want to get him on here. And I think I told you before we started, I was always the shortest guy in my class when I was growing up. So Calvin was one of my favorite players.
And obviously a Hall of Famer, and what he accomplished as an athlete is in a sport filled by giants is just.
Even without talking about the baton twirling, right?
Right. The world-class baton twirler. Like, everything he basically did, he excelled at.
Unbelievable. So, all right. So how long have you and Ryan been partners? I want to talk about.
So when Bill retired,
you were with Battle.
So when Bill retired, just stopped doing it. Matt went to work into the Rockets front office, and so they were looking for a new analyst. So this will be. I kind of always lose track on time. This will be, I think, this will be, let me see here. This will be Ryan and I's 5th year together, I believe.
And did you know him?
Not at all.
This is what I'm saying. So my first question, okay, you didn't know.
Never knew him.
Now you guys, look, for all of us who are watching the game, like, you guys have to have chemistry, right? So how do the producers know that you guys are going to work well together? Does he audition with you?
There was an audition. They brought in the finalists for an audition in studio. And obviously he was one of them. I had never met him, never run across him, got his phone number. And I was actually, ironically, the day before we did the demo, I was coming back from a family vacation, so called him from the airport. He was in the airport on his way to Houston. Say, hey man, I just want to introduce myself. Look forward to meeting you tomorrow. And that's how it kind of started. And then I did the demo with all the finalists, gave my feedback, and ultimately they made the decision. I did not have a role, and I gave my feedback on all the finalists, but ultimately was.
You didn't have a vote.
No. I did not have a vote. They asked my opinion, right? But I was not ultimately consulted on the final decision, on the final hire. And so, Ryan had been living in LA and been doing stuff for ESPN. And his hire kind of became official pretty close to the start of the preseason. Wow. So I don't think he actually showed up in Houston until a couple of days before our first. And so the team, it took some time. The team was not very good. When the team is better, it helps us a lot. The team was still rebuilding. And so, it took a little while. But I think we have developed really, really good chemistry.
How are you guys ever? Again, to me, it seems like guys you've been together forever.
He's a really sweet guy.
Yeah, really, really, really nice. A really, really nice guy. And you guys just, you just jive together very well, right? It's just very natural.
He's got a radio background too, because when he was playing, he knew the Players Association had a broadcasting school. So he put himself into that. And then, he started doing radio stuff, originally. Wow. And so he kind of had a little bit of a radio background before he started moving into television.
I still don't know what
Ryan's a guy who can talk forever.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. Also the sharpest dress guy in the arena. And you guys just have and that's why I was asking, like, how do you develop the rapport? I assume it just comes with time.
Over time. Right. Over time. And then as the team has gotten better, trust me, it's helped our lives, everyone's lives in the organization are made better when the team is better.
How hard is it so, there were a couple of years there where they won, 18, 20, 21 games. How hard is it? And I'll tell you what somebody said. One of the broadcasters did the little, what do you call that when they sit in the chair? Stand up? I know what you call it. Like before the game, the little pregame thing that doing in the chairs. I don't know.
It's their stand up. They might even do it a pregame.
Okay, it's not a pregame thing. So he's talking with a great game. And then he turns to me and says, "We're going to get bludgeoned, you know." And I'm not going to say who it was, you know, but it's a team that won 20 games, right? And we did. We beat them by like 35, 40 points or something like that. So he marched up to the booth to do the game, and just knew they're going to get that butt kicked. How hard is it to bring the energy that they're talking about when the team really stinks, and when the most nights you just don't have a chance?
It's far more difficult than it is when the team is well, but you got to remind yourself that, again, you're sitting in a chair that is not occupied by very many people, that statistically speaking, to be in that chair is almost impossible. That you're getting paid to call a sport. When people are paying money to go watch.
Yeah, by the way, I pay for my seats. I don't know. It's about a year now. Yeah, I'm paying for mine.
And it's fun regardless. And so you make the most of it. And when a team is not very good, first of all, I think I pride myself on trying to be as fair as possible and not blow smoke about people. I never get personal. Like, in this position, I don't think you can ever get personal. Like, you don't want to personally say, so-and-so is awful. Right. This team's terrible. They're not playing well. They shot poorly tonight. Things like that. Like, there are other ways, but people see what you see. So to me, it's very important to be honest with people. Like, if the team is not playing well, you got to point it out. Right. A guy's not having a good game, not having a good month. I think it's important to point that out because people can see that. I think it adds to it's important for my personal credibility. And then you also just start focusing, if you can't say something nice about your guy, then the other guys are on scholarship too. So start praising the other players, the other team, right? And so when the team you're working for is not very good, there is a level of, you have to be honest that the team is not playing well. They're struggling in these areas, and so on and so forth. Never get personal. At the same time, also try to keep it in the context of this is part of the building process, especially through the young players, learning process. And the other team is really good. This is what they do well. That player is really good. It's tough to try to slow down or stop this guy. And so that's how you kind of formulate them. But even though your team might be down by 25 points midway through the first quarter or something, you're still in it doing a job that most people would kill to have.
It's mind blowing. So when, like, for example, in the latest rebuild, right, that we're now reaping the
and I never experienced anything like this rebuild in my long, the previous time was when the Rockets came off the Western Conference Finals in 2018, right, and Dwight and James Harden, they went 41-41.
Oh, wow.
That's the worst season that I ever been a part of, even as an intern, up until to this actual rebuilding. Credit to Rockets ownership and the Rockets front office. They did it the right way.
And did you, and when they're at the lowest of the low, and of course you want to believe, so to speak, could you see the light at the end of the tunnel? Are you watching those games just saying, how the hell are we ever going to get from here?
It can be tough because I don't know if anybody actually really knows ultimately if there's a light at the end of the tunnel, because acquiring players and drafting players and developing players is a very inexact science. And so, but I do think the organization absolutely did it the right way here. They tore it down and went with a very young core. And now, as you've seen that core ultimately develop and mature and get better, they've done the right thing again by originally sprinkling, they brought in Dylan Brooks and they brought Fred VanVleet to teach these guys how to become more professional, Jeff Green and so on. And so they've done it the right way. But again, each game is a different entity, whether the team is good or the team is bad, and you just try to make the most of it and have fun. It's sports.
It's really a lot of fun. I want to ask you a little bit about sort of your relationship with the players and travel, because I think, most people have no idea. Like, so when the team's on the road, describe a road trip for me, right? You go out, a 3-game road trip on the West Coast, wherever it is. You travel with the team, you stay with the team.
Yes, all the above.
Okay. So you travel them on the buses and the planes and all that?
Yeah. So, each team does their how to get to the airport thing a little bit differently.
You and Ryan don't have to share. No, I'm kidding.
No, we fly out a hobby, right? And we're also very fortunate in that Tim Fertitta several years ago bought his own plane, so the Rockets have a really nice, gigantic, big plane. And so we basically go to hobby and drive onto the tarmac park right next to the plane.
Pretty cool.
And then get on the plane just like everybody else.
Must be hard to travel like when you have to travel normally. Like
tell you
the rest of us, man.
I'm going to sound like an elitist snob here, but once you fly charter and private everywhere, getting onto a commercial flight is miserable. The whole experience is just miserable.
Yeah.
Now, trust me, I am not paying for my own. I'm not flying private on my own. Like, if I'm going on a family vacation, I am not jumping on a private jet. I am flying commercial, just like the significant majority of the world.
Yeah.
But once you kind of experience something like that, it's much nicer. But yeah, so you basically just park by the plane. Now, I make sure I get there early because they're not waiting on me. If it's time to go, and when they say it's time to go, it's time to go.
They really go.
So if like we're leaving at 2:00, then the doors on the plane is closing at 2.
Do people actually miss the flight? I mean,
It happens extremely rarely. Okay, very very rarely. Guys get there on time, otherwise they get fined, they get in trouble, and they're there.
and you know, and I wanted to sort of understand a little bit your relationship with the players, right? So, you're on the plane, you're hanging out with players, you're talking to players, or no? Ourselves, and you're hanging with.
I mean, occasionally you strike up conversations, and
right.
like in our plane, the way it's structured is the coach and the front office staff are in the front,
Right.
Broadcast, training staff. Rockets travel with 3 or 4 different trainers, 2 massage therapists, 3 different strength and conditioning coaches, nutritionists. So our section is basically that section. The players sit in the back.
All right.
Again, our situation, most of the NBA, there is a commercial airliner that has, a charter service for professional teams.
Right.
The vast majority of pro teams have that. There are very few that actually own their own planes, like the situation here. We're very fortunate in that when we get on the plane, the pilots are the exact same.
Oh, it's
All the flight attendants are the same people.
Right.
So you know them.
Yeah.
They know you.
Really?
So for instance, I get made fun of this for being a little elitist, but you know, I'm doing a lot of talking. The season's going on. I like my green tea with honey, my hot green tea with honey. So when I get on the plane, I have my hot tea. But they know, and you can come on the plane, and you can leave your stuff on the plane. It will be there. These charter services come in, land, leave, pick up another team. So it's unique. It's really cool in that way. But yeah, and so yeah, sometimes you interact with the players, but generally my personal philosophy is that they got their own people. Like, so many people are grabbing and wanting a piece of their time. That's their private space. That's their private area. They're regular people, just like you and me. And I just treat them as such. And some players, I have better relationships with others. Some players I interact more with others. And so,
I spoke to some of the executives on the team who've told me that this is just a great group of guys. A great bunch of guys, right?
Really good group of guys.
Really good.
We haven't had many awful dudes in my tenure.
And that's what I asked you. So, you talked about the comments, and I'm not saying anybody was awful as a person, right? But, there was obviously tension there, right? So is it harder to interact with, if a guy's a jerk, is it harder to does it affect?
My philosophy is I still kind of try to just give them their space regardless. And if they want to interact with me, they'll interact with me. If they don't, then that's fine. Like, again, so many people want a piece of their time. And again, like team flights, times in the hotels, chance for them to sort of just be private.
Yeah.
The one player that I always felt really, really bad for was Yao Ming.
Really? Why is that?
Because first of all, he was extremely recognizable. He was like 7'6". Like, you couldn't help but notice him. He was like probably the most famous person in the world.
Yes. But coming from China, yes, absolutely.
And when he's walking down the street, first of all, you don't see too many people who are 7'6". And there are a whole lot of Chinese people who walk around are 7'6". And then you realize it's Yao Ming, and he's a professional athlete, and he's an extremely accomplished professional athlete. And he's one of the world's most well-known people. Like, he couldn't even walk into a place to get a coffee without being like harassed. And I felt so bad for him. That's the one guy, he never could be a normal person ever. And so when he had a space and he was on the plane, and you see him, like, that's his place to be a normal functioning human being. And I tend to just let them be that way.
And when you're on the road, and Do you hang out? Do you like you Ryan Vanessa like get up and get breakfast in the morning and say let's go to let's go here?
I'm not much. I'm not so much of a breakfast guy. I'm more just like a coffee and a snack guy in the mornings. But for dinner, yes, we hang. Our group, we're not hanging with the players, but our group, yes, we hang a lot. We go out to dinner,
and that's because you're buddies and you love being with each other,
right?
Or are you prepping for the games, or really
I'm not there, but there is prep obviously involved in between there and the downtime to the hotels, and yes, there is work that goes into getting ready for these games. I always equate it to if you were in a college class and your professor said you have one piece of paper for an open book test, you can write down as many notes as you want on the front and back and bring it with you in the exam. That's kind of like this. Like I have a chance to put together everything that I need on spotting boards and use that to reference background information, stats, all that stuff.
It's very cool. By the way, again,
I take my prep very seriously.
Yeah. And it's funny. So when I'm watching the game, the relationship, I'm just talking about really the three of you, basically, really you, Ryan, Vanessa. You feel it, right? You just really feel like you're hanging out with three friends.
Yes, where we are, we are actually friends.
And there's some pretty fun back and forth teasing that goes on. I feel like maybe Vanessa's giving you crap about something, or Ryan crap.
I'm easily made fun of. So there you go.
I don't know about that, but you really get the feeling that these are three buddies who just enjoy hanging out with each other, who are going to tell you about what's going on in the game and sort of entertain you. And so, it's, I don't know if I'm guessing that's the vibe you're trying.
Yes. No. We definitely are friends. There are some weird, rare stories of some broadcast teams that where they just hate each other, but it doesn't happen very often. But no, we are genuinely friends. We do hang out. We do have a good time. So
that's very cool. And does your free throw announcer jinx ever work? By the way,
it works a lot.
It does.
The best in the league. The Rockets. I think the Rockets had I think that last year they were.
Explain to everybody what
they had. I think the Rockets were the best free throw defense in the NBA last year. Of course, it works.
Explain to everybody what the broadcast.
You've heard of the announcer jinx, right? It's all BS. I mean, it's like there's nothing I can say or do that's all. But I'd actually, you sit there and the guys at the free throw line, especially in a key situation, and what my approach is, I try to pump them up. You take a guy like Steph Curry, he's like the greatest free throw shooter of all time. Here's Curry, he's the greatest free throw shooter of all time. He's shooting like hasn't missed a free throw in 2 months. I don't know. And then I think it's part of it just adds to the personality and identity and funness of the show. And frankly, when I do it, I'm actually, relative to my peers, I guess it works for me. The Rockets free throw, I think the Rockets are the best free throw defense in the league this year. Yeah.
And I guess that's mostly because
I take full credit for that.
I'm going to give it to you.
I do take full credit for that.
I really appreciate you coming in here today, man. This has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed myself, and I'm greatly appreciative that you took the time to be with us. The first guest on Courtside, and
all the best to you in this venture. Your studio is awesome. You got a great crew. Obviously, your personality is out there too. So, best of luck to you. It's an honor to have been your first guest.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching this week's episode. Like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.